Rodriguez will ruin Star Wars?
Five,
Four.
uno.
Yeah, all right, all right. Getting down with that song. Check out our new merch store official. It's up, it's popping. Now, here's the thing. Stay tuned, watch the entire video, and there will be a little announcement regarding that. So, but you got to watch the whole thing, man. All right, so I might have been a little dramatic right there with that entrance. It's okay. That's how I hook you in. Because several months ago, I made the statement saying Rodriguez will save Star Wars. Now, do I still feel the same way? Well, let's read this article and I'll get back to you on that. I just saw it this past weekend, the Texas Monthly, and I thought it was pretty interesting read. That is a really good read. Texas Monthly tends to bust out some good stuff. An exclusive interview with Robert Rodriguez puts his mark on the Book of Boba Fett. It caused a disturbance in the Force. The Austin filmmakers' episodes of the Book of Boba Fett embody an existential crisis over the future of Star Wars. It's dated January 28th by Shane O'Neill. Yeah, gotta get the name right, gotta get the credit right. So let's begin. The list of those who have ruined Star Wars is ever changing. And now, as long as one of the film's iconic opening crawls, as now as long as one of the film's iconic opening crawls. Today, at any given hour on Twitter, you will still find trending tweets castigating directors Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams for helming sequels that are, respectively, too irreverent and overly nostalgic. I disagree on that last part. I agree about the trending part. But let's continue. Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy and her company's corporate overlords at Disney have absorbed their fair share of abuse as well, openly resented for taking the reins of Star Wars and lead it into a future of all new stuff to be mad about. But this backlash isn't just a recent phenomenon. Even George Lucas has been accused of misunderstanding and sullying its own creation, his own creation. I mean, that is not untrue. That is not untrue, especially when it came to him. That's really started in the mid 90s when he started re-editing and coming up with special editions of the original trilogy. And then, of course, there were the prequels. Okay. George Lucas has been accused of misunderstanding and selling his own creation. First with his merchandising-driven medley of Return of the Jedi, then with his digitally spackled special editions, then with a trilogy of lackluster prequels. To make more Star Wars has always been a risk, ruining it for most of its zealous fans. Oh, that's another group that's ruined Star Wars, the fans. And then there's a link, there's a hyperlink. And I don't want to go there. It's an Esquire story. I'll put that link in the chat. How about that? So far, at least, no one has accused Robert Rodriguez of ruining Star Wars. But just after two Rodriguez directed chapters of Disney Plus's newest spin-off series, The Book of Boba Fett, which centers on the enigmatic green-armored bounty hunter who captured Han Solo in the 1980s, The Empire Strikes Back, the Austin filmmaker has already been singled out for criticism by those who feel Rodriguez's playful style simply doesn't gel with Star Wars. And there is definitely that sentiment out there. This has become quite a divisive new show. I think any new Star Wars is going to be divisive as long as they continue to just create their own stories that are not married to the EU or to Legends, and that's what you're getting, for better for worse. Okay, despite Rodriguez insisting early on that he didn't want to put his own stamp on the show, as he told TV Insider so far, The the book of Boba Fett feels more defined by filmmakers' individual voice than any other Star Wars project since Lucas's own films. And the backlash against Rodriguez daring to make Boba Fett his own illustrates the schism between those who see Star Wars as a boundless universe for all kinds of storytelling and those who want it to remain as fixed and sacrosanct, I love that word, as a vintage Luke Skywalker toy still in its Kenner packaging. That is really, and let's go big here for a minute. That really is, guys, the crux of it. Is there's always going to be these two major camps. And we'll just say it right now. The original Star Wars fans that are also connected to the EU, expanded universe, comics and books, television shows, pre-Disney, and now the Disney Star Wars fans. I happen to be one of the old timers who is always giving Disney Star Wars a fool's hope. And I was not a fan of the sequel movies. I am a fan of The Mandalorian, and I am a fan of Boba Fett. But yeah, I mean, this writer is, so far for me, I'm seeing he's laying the land pretty clean here. But let us continue. For what it's worth, Rodriguez seems to have anticipated all of this. He says, I usually avoid premiere properties. You'll never be able to please everybody. It's a losing game. Rodriguez told the Hollywood Reporter shortly after assuming his co-showrunner duties, and we covered this as well. I'd rather go do something I've created so nobody can say, hey, that's wrong. That's a great point. Still, he took the job anyway. Rodriguez's reasoning was that Boba Fett as a character has always been more of a projection of the fandom's imagination rather than some involuble text. I would agree. Boba Fett's actual screen time in the original Star Wars trilogy clocks in at 6.5 minutes. After all, he gets just 4 lines of dialogue in the whole thing, not counting that humiliating scream as he's launched into the Sarlacc pit. Even after the prequels introduced us to little Boba Fett, somehow the bounty hunter has retained his aura of danger and intrigue, largely because we never actually saw him do much. You can kind of do anything you want, so as long as you make him cool and don't make him a buffoon, Rodriguez told Hollywood Reporter. Let me stop right there. There's a large faction of the fandom that believes exactly that's what Rodriguez and company have done. They've made him a buffoon. This new vision of who Boba Fett is. That is there. To that end, Rodriguez has already resurrected Boba Fett for an episode he directed in the second season of The Mandalorian and successfully restored a lot of his stoic cool. And I will say this as well, the same fandom that's so split on this, that's hating Book of Boba Fett, they loved Rodriguez's Mandalorian episode as well as I did. That I can say like not 100%, but the majority of Star Wars fans did really like that episode. When Rodriguez was then brought into executive produce alongside the Mandalorians Jon Favreau and David Filoni, an entire spin-off series about Boba Fett assuming control of the late Jabba the Hutt's criminal empire, it seemed like an ideal match between artist and muse. What are your thoughts right now on this article? What are your thoughts on the Book of Boba Fett, the television show? Season 1 is almost going to wrap up. Remember, you can catch our live stream archives if you don't catch us live, where I'm with filmmaker Tom Conkle and some of our other buddies, and we break it down cinematically, storytelling, as well as being fans of Star Wars, but we break down the really kind of the cinematic tools of every episode, and we've had a great time. So make sure you are connected to that playlist as well. But let us continue. I want to know though. Make sure you are commenting, like Marv in Sin City, Seth Gecko in From Dusk Till Dawn, the protagonist of both Rodriguez Machete films and his Mexico trilogy, El Mariachi, Desperado, and Once Upon a Time in Mexico, Boba Fett is a shadowy anti-hero, plowing his own path through a morally gray desert, an unstoppable outlaw who's guided by his instincts and his internal, inviolable code. Plus, he shoots things out of various body parts. Who understands that better than Robert Rodriguez? Yet the reviews of the Rodriguez-directed pilot, which streamed December 29th, were, to put it politely, mixed. They range from the Variety's timid appreciation of the Book of Boba Fett's relative narrative tidiness to the SF Gates assessment of it as an abysmal failure on every level. That was rough, man. I read that. Most of those critiques have little to do with Rodriguez, taking issue instead with the self-serious tone, or Tamora Morrison's limited dramatic range as Boba, or the show's apparent redundancy. That episode of The Mandalorian had already given the fans the Boba Fett they'd wanted. No spinoff required. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. It's storytelling, and no matter, I feel, whatever plot you take, there's always going to be, especially if you're daring to tell a new story, like from a different perspective. There's always going to be that group that's just, no, it's not my Star Wars. It's not my Boba Fett. All right, let us keep reading on. But by the third episode, which dropped January 12th, and it was also helmed by Rodriguez, the backlash had fully turned toward the filmmaker himself. And there's some Twitter tweets, and we'll put that link as well. Not coincidentally, this was also the episode that took the biggest narrative swing, introducing a band of cyborg punks who modify their bodies using droid parts, speaking in posh British accents, and rumble through the dusty streets of Tatooine on their candy-colored space motorcycles. Jokes about the Power Rangers, Captain Planet, and even Seinfeld flooded in. And unfavorable comparisons were drawn to Rodriguez's own Spy Kids franchise. More pointedly, and just as Rodriguez had predicted, some fans quickly declared that it was all wrong. Quote, "There's not an ounce of Star Wars in this image," went on one viral tweet over a photo of Rodriguez's scooter gang. So marinate on that one for a second. Yep, that was. Let me just say, let me add to that. As we have been covering this weekly, we see the weekly memes days and days after every new episode. Memes on like a Bantha, memes on the Power Rangers, Danny Trejo's Rancor Trainer. I mean, the memes, a lot of humor. I could I can laugh at the best of them, but they are brutal to the show. Brutal. All right. Enough of the Power Ranger. Well, maybe we'll get more, but let's keep reading. As many were. Let me go back for a second. Unfavorable comparisons are drawn to Rodriguez's own Spy Kids franchise. Let me go back to let me go back to let's hit the single for a second. Okay. I get it. I get the backlash, I get the resentment, I get it all. What I don't get and what I find interesting is how voices out there attack the man's career, his actual talent, and saying that, well, this movie wasn't so great after all, and he got lucky here, he got lucky there. Por favor. Por favor. Hit your opinions. I love it. That's great. But you start attacking the man's career, it's like, brother, sure. I will say in a filmmaker's career, as long as he's been around, he's had more success than failure, which is amazing. That is amazing. Okay, so that is my mini within rant, not really rant, but we shall continue. All right, where are we? As many were quick to point out, however, it's not entirely true. George Lucas was a well-documented hot rod guy. After all, his gearhead obsessions are all over his earliest movies, from his college thesis film, 14208, A Man in His Car, to his big breakout hit, American Graffiti. Those fixations naturally bled into Star Wars. Lucas swapped Deuce Coupes for starships and land speeders and spent a whole lot of screen time over the decades pitting them against one another in interstellar drag races. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Rodriguez has merely updated Lucas's many 50s greaser homages with nods to the 60s mod culture. Boba Fett's gang modifies itself with droid parts, hence Mod Gang. Get it? Besides, in a universe where little green wizards have laser sword fights and fishmen are promoted to the rank of Admiral Akbar, are some teens on Vespas really pushing it? Okay, all right. I'll play both sides here. Absolutely, the lore, the love affair of Lucas and cars and drag racings is well documented since he was a teenager, and I do think that it really continues in this show, especially with the latest Mandalorian episode, of course, where they spent almost 8 minutes putting together a new kind of hot rod version of the of his new of his new um, vehicle, and then he goes and takes it out on a ride, which was incredible. Now, I will say though, on the other side, the teen of Vespas just it, they belong to Coruscant, or maybe it's like maybe they could have said we just arrived from Coruscant. I think the fact that there were some holes there, and it was very odd. Nonetheless, the accusation that Rodriguez, who also will direct the season finale, which will stream February 9th. Can't wait for that. As putting his personal mark on the Book of Boba Fett is grounded in facts. The motorcycles are only the shiniest, most gifable evidence. There are also gee-whiz gadgets, acid crayon Easter eggs. The acid crayon that Fennec used to get in, I liked. And cartoonists, fruit car upending chase scenes, which all feel straight out of Spy Kids. The robo-teens who make up the mod gang continue Rodriguez's fascination and at times fetishization of people who turn their bodies into mechanized weapons, something he previously explored in Planet Terror and Alita Battle Angel, which I think were more successful in those films. Right? In an episode here, it just was too out of place for me. It's too out of place for me. And the chase, for me, was my low point of the series. The third episode also introduces us to a local water broker, played by the honorary Texan Stephen Root, great actor, a callous aristocrat who's oppressing a downtrodden populace. So in the mode of so many of Rodriguez's antagonists, and the kind of villain that seems destined to show up in his upcoming Zorro reboot. Yeah, that's the problem, is that Stephen Root, he set up this his character was kind of like over embellishing that, how evil and tough these mod kids were, and then they show up and they're like too pretty. It was just kind of a problem. It was kind of a problem, and it was, whether he meant to do that, I just think the execution wasn't the best. All right. And yet, Rodriguez even found a place for Danny Trejo as surely yet surprisingly sensitive Rancor trainer. It bears mentioning that no one seems to have any problem with Trejo. That's true. It's a good point. But perhaps more than anything, the Book of Boba Fett has so far been defined by Rodriguez's abiding love of all things badass, a word he uses to describe both Boba and his loyal muscle, Fennec Shand, Ming Na Wen. But that more broadly describes Rodriguez's entire approach to directing. He says, for when I would design whole sequences just to end on her and the look she would give to Boba because she's so badass, he would tell the Hollywood Reporter. According to Collider, Bringing Boba Fett back for the Mandalorian, Rodriguez says, I just got to make him super badass in this moment, and that be the character that I imagined him when I heard about him when I was 12. And he did that in that episode. He really, really knocked it out of the park. Rodriguez Boba Fett episodes, as with so many of his own movies, all feel deliberately structured around a badass payoff, like the Parker-style rooftop chase in the pilot, or the low-angled shot of Sophie Thatcher, who plays a gang member, swooping up into the camera on her speeder bike. Rodriguez was like, this is going to sell. And it does. I'm 50-50 about that. Thatcher said of that scene, adding, he has such a specific way of seeing what people want. Okay, so I will say this, guys. I don't agree that there has been a deliberately structured around a badass payoff. Meaning, I don't agree that these two examples, the rooftop chase and this mod race, are the payoffs. The payoff of Rodriguez's vision is going to be in episode 7, season 1. That's his overall big vision payoff. Here is just a little fun. Some worked, some didn't. And that's how I feel about that. Okay. All right. Rodriguez. Let's make this big again. Rodriguez has also described working on The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett as getting to play with all his toys he loved as a kid. It's no surprise to learn that Rodriguez created his home tape Mandalorian audition for Favreau. I love this story. And Filoni using his son's Star Wars action figures, or as when confirmed to The Hollywood Reporter. That's when he continued to use them even now to act out Book of Boba Fett sequences, complete with sound effects for his cast and crew. Rodriguez movies has always had that manic energy of a kid smashing his playthings together, defying both physics and narrative logic to create the giddiest, most over-the-top scenes imaginable. So it only makes sense that he would bring that childlike enthusiasm to bear on Boba Fett, who, least we forget, was a toy long before he was anything close to a fleshed-out character. Some may quibble with Rodriguez's specific execution of his enthusiasm, saying that the pilot's parkour felt overly choreographed and stagey, or that the scooter chase scene just came off as goofy. Yeah, guilty. Too clumsily slow, and obviously CGI'd. But at the root of the Rodriguez backlash, this insistence that there's not an ounce of Star Wars in it. In his take on this material lies the more fundamental conflict over how people like to play Star Wars themselves, and how this often doesn't jive with others. Great point. Great point. Great point. We all play with our Star Wars action figures differently. Completely. And that's what Rodriguez is doing. Let the man play. Absolutely. I'm totally on with this, man. I really am. I really am. Because we all do it every day. I mean, I got figures all over the place. I make my own voices. We all do that stuff. Some Star Wars fans love the classic Joseph Campbell's sweeping of its mythology, its epic themes of good and evil, destiny and redemption. Some are taken in by the world building and design and its tactile, lived-in vision of futuristic technology. Others are invested in its flawed, deeply human characters and the soap operatic stories it tells about love and family. This is a really good written article, by the way. Texas Monthly, knocking it out. There are some fans, presumably, who get off on interplanetary trade disputes as much as George Lucas seems to. I wasn't. Oh, sorry. Sorry, George. And then there are those who, like Rodriguez, just want to see a bunch of badass and cool suits flying around, firing lasers at each other. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of these approaches. Still, it's easy to see why those who regard Star Wars with even a touch more solemnity would like to take issue with Rodriguez coloring outside the lines with big neon markers. Yes. Yes. That said, they should probably get used to it. As Star Wars has moved further into its bite-sized episodic storytelling and has increasingly it has increasingly allowed its overarching lore to take a backseat to big set pieces and elaborate fight sequences, emphasizing heavy action and short-term gratification. On the plus side, that's also allowing more latitude for defiantly individualistic takes like Rodriguez. Whether or not you actually like it, now that Rodriguez has busted the door wide open with the Skittle punk scooter dudes. That's great. There is officially no idea that can be considered too far outside the franchise's well-trodden realms to explore, and that's a good thing. Rodriguez isn't ruining Star Wars so much as he's helping redefine it and ensuring that this galaxy stays big enough for everyone. I gotta say bravo to this Texas Monthly and this writer. Let's get his name real quick. Sean O'Neill. Yeah, very well put. Very well put. You know, and it's good that he brings up fandom and he brings up the examples, all the memes that we've been having a good time of it all. So I will also put this story in the you best believe in the chat there. So wrapping it up, I think it's a fantastic story. But I have to tell you that as much as I agree with a lot of points in this article, I see I see what he's talking about every day just in running the channel and staying up to speed with Star Wars stuff, as well as my own love and enthusiasm for Star Wars, and even much more for Mr. Rodriguez. I had said months ago, Rodriguez will save Star Wars, and I will say it again. Rodriguez is saving Star Wars. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you stuck around for the entire video, fantastic. What we're going to do right now is we're going to get you a chance to win this coffee mug. So all you got to do is in the comment, let me know what the word fuerte means, because every time at the end of each video, I say to you, I hope you're well, and wherever you're at, keep your slant fuerte. Let me know. Hope you enjoyed the video. Share, all that good stuff. Paz, gracias.
Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Slant.
Yeah, but isn't this the unplugged version? I don't know. I think it's the unplugged version.
All right, Paulie, let's go.